The account that we have heard from St. Luke places before us, of course, the story of the suffering and death of Jesus Christ. But much more than that, it exposes, as it must, universal human weaknesses and failings as well. Crowds who joyfully cheered Christ's arrival and his entrance into Jerusalem are persuaded by those in authority to jeer him during his trial not even 1 week later, showing just how easily manipulated is human popular opinion, how quickly responsive it is to the whims and purposes of those in power, and how truth itself is one of its last influences, if ever even one at all. As Jesus, who is the most innocent, the most wise, the most loving of human beings who will ever live, is judged first by religious authorities and then by civil authorities to be a man somehow so dangerous in their opinion to be deserving of capital punishment. That's absurd, but it reveals how flawed, how corrupted human judgments can be, even by those given the respect and authority to make them in any society. The outcome of the trial of Jesus shows us that the innocent can indeed be unjustly charged and convicted right along with the guilty, and that sometimes it is the guilty like Barabbas, whom everyone knows is not innocent, who end up walking free, while the innocent like Jesus are sent off to torture and to death. Indeed, systems in human societies set up to promote justice, when due process is absent or flawed, can end up being instruments of the very worst kind of injustice. And when Pilate, who can see that this is a sham charge against Jesus created by the chief priests, in the end does nothing to counter it and set this innocent man free, but instead cowardly washes his hands of it so as not to have to challenge those authorities and the crowds they have riled up. Look at him. He ended up forever on the wrong side of human history. That all of this corruption can go unchecked, and the injustice of all injustices can proceed with no one to stop it, makes that Friday in Jerusalem, now 1,992 years ago, the darkest day in human history. But such dark days continue. They continue right down through history, right into our own day, with many of the very same dynamics operating, as the innocent are condemned along with the guilty. And as we should not want any part in that ever, let us never lose sight of the human imperfections potentially present and operating in every human situation, but especially such pivotal ones like accusation and judgment. And if after the most careful consideration we find that in some situations we can't reach any deep degree of certainty in our minds and hearts as to where the truth lies, let us join our voices to the crowd, even if it's the minority, that loudly insists that the accused be given the benefit of the doubt. For it is far better to let the guilty go free than to incarcerate an innocent person, or worse, to have them condemned to death. Jesus, sadly, had no alternative crowd such as that to advocate for his relief on that Friday so long ago. And so we are here reminded that no justice, no mercy was shown him who is compassion and mercy itself, as he was condemned to a death which in its humiliation and in its torturous pain was clearly undeserved by one so perfectly good. Yet Jesus will redeem this injustice of all injustices by freely offering all he had to suffer for the guilty of all time. That's us. Not merely to preserve us from the punishment we may deserve here, but especially to save us from being deprived of the good that we most want for ourselves hereafter. That is all that God the Father promises. Even still, in the face of such a generous offering for our salvation, are the popular opinions of the masses finally swayed to Jesus' side? Sadly, it doesn't really appear so, for we well know that more people will likely be at malls, movie houses, restaurants, stadiums, ball fields, and bowling alleys on Good Friday than they will be at church to remember and give thanks to Jesus, who willingly died with the guilty to save us all from unending death. May we never find our own minds that thoughtless, nor our hearts that indifferent, but rather never tire of hearing the story of his passion repeated, assured that it is the greatest love story that has and will ever be told, one in which Jesus himself ultimately is the author, and we, as fallen humanity, are the subject.